Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is the Love and Connection podcast. And here we tackle a bunch of different things that many of us go through, deal with, struggle with, or wonder about. And she's an amazing American psychotherapist. Actually, she's originally from Jamaica here in the States. Do I have that right?
My family is Jamaican. I'm born and raised here in this country. Yep.
Well, I knew you were, but I was talking about, I love Jamaica. I can't wait to go back. Rhena Miller is part of what we're doing today. We have G here. We have Jonathan, right? And Philip. That's our crew, our connection crew. Creativity is what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. What does that mean in our lives? When you hear that word, conjures up a lot. Are we talking about a painting? Are we talking about being creative in your life? Are we talking about creatively solving challenges? I'm going to throw it right to G about all of this. What starts in your mind when we talk about creativity?
Thanks, Steve. Yeah. The reason that, we're thinking about creativity today is because it is so inherently connected to love and connection. I grew up really thinking that I wasn't creative. I wasn't good at art. I had so many friends. My little sister is an incredible artist. My art just wasn't at that level. So I was like, well, I'm just not good at it, so I shouldn't do it. And in college, I just kind of got fed up with that. I decided I wanted to start painting. So I bought myself an acrylic paint set and some tiny little 1-inch by 1-inch canvases because I didn't want to get overwhelmed by anything larger. Mm-hmm. And I just started painting on my dorm floor in college and really just gave myself permission to be creative in ways that were new, in ways that I felt like I wasn't good at first. And I feel like that was a really important shift in my life to just be more creative in all kinds of ways and to invite that kind of creativity, which has fostered so much love and connection for me. I've been able to do some amazing activist art, especially here in Portland with my colleague, Serena Saturn. And that has really not only connected me to like my own experiences, but connected me to other people, which is awesome. And so kind of the question today is, what is an area of creativity in your life? And how do you feel like that fosters or invites love and connection in your life? So that's kind of what we've been thinking about here.
I have lots of thoughts, but I'm not going second. Let's go to Rhena.
Okay, well, I took a class in 2000, expressive arts therapy class, and I had seen a flyer that said, "Do you think you're creative?" No. How creativity and spirituality can come together. And and I didn't know I was creative. I didn't know yet that I was going to be writing poetry. I didn't know I would one day getting on stage and making fun of myself, doing improv, somehow getting some people to laugh. And anyway, I will say dancing, I think, is the place where I really feel free and connected to human beings. And I will start dancing. And I used to say, Phil used to enjoy this. I used to say one of my goals in life were to get white people on the dance floor and Black folks out into nature. And anyway, what I have a blast doing is starting to dance, and then I just turn around. I might spot somebody who looks like they want to come, and I'll point to them, and next thing they join me, and next thing a bunch of us are on the floor, and we are really connecting, and it feels like heaven. And yep, I mean, and when it's a live band, there's one instrument starts taking over, and I just feel like I am there dancing with that instrument. And anyway, it's lovely. I feel kind of at one there.
Oh my gosh. I will go to see anything live If it's a DJ, I was out Saturday night with a bunch of friends, actually a bunch of new friends. This was the greatest time. I happen to know the DJ, so I didn't even know he was going to be there. But there's like a electrical vibe in the air when there's live music, or even just a DJ playing music, where everybody's appreciating it at the same time. You pick the genre, I'll go to see it. I don't care. I just love just being around people that are enjoying that live kind of music. Philip, how about creativity with you? How does that look?
I'm always amazed when I hear people talk about how they don't feel creative. Um,
Mm,
we seem to have decided that you are creative if you're a renowned artist of some kind, that you're going to be creative with paint, that you're going to be creative with music. But I think what you were just talking about is really, the creativity that binds us, the act of creation, of having live music where somebody is creating sounds out of thin air and we all get together and move with that and appreciate that is the important part of creativity. This
mm,
idea of sort of virtuosic creativity is so it inhibits so many other people. I can't play music because I'm not Beethoven, and I think that there's so much creativity in our daily lives, in what we do, everything from raising children to cooking dinner. And being able to
mm.
appreciate that is, I think, a really valuable thing. And once you appreciate it, once you understand that you're creating something, that you're building something, then it's much easier to share it with others and you can connect with them. And that brings us together. It's that act of connection that is shared that is, I think, the important part of creativity, not, some painting in a museum.
I think that's like exactly the point you were talking about earlier before we started, the artistic framework in life. And it's not necessarily about what you're creating. It's being creative. And I think that's such a important distinction.
It's so true. In many IT type jobs or in the technical field, you'll always see need a creative problem solver. It's that word, which means so much because you come up with solutions to things and you're creative about doing it. Jonathan, how does creativity look to you?
I fall into the same boat as everyone else in that growing up, I was told artistic means creative. If you're not artistic, you probably won't be creative. That was just the messaging I got from a kid. Even being an engineering major in college, all the creative engineers were the innovators. They were the ones coming up with new ideas, disrupting the markets. And I never came up with any ideas. So I thought, well, I'm just not a creative person. I'm just going to be I'm going to have someone else tell me what I need to do. The lines are clear. That's just my personality. But it wasn't until I said that sentence, I'm not creative, out loud to Rena, that she pushed back very hard and said, no, you are. You have to know that everybody is. You need to okay, we need to think about this right now. How are you creative? And we spent, I don't know how long, 30 minutes just trying to figure out, trying to dig up where the creativity was from my past. And it's funny how if you don't think about it, it never comes to the top of your brain. And my favorite example that I thought of was, as a kid, we had limited screen time. We loved our video games. We loved our turn-based strategy games. We loved our Super Mario, but we only had an hour a day. And then they kicked us outside to go play with our friends. And so what did we do? Well, we used paper, pencils, and markers, and we created game boards to play our games without the computers. And we
Mm.
created board games to come together and continue to play and work around our parents' rules. But that was creative. And I don't think I ever made that connection of, oh, people don't just create board games. That takes creativity.
Yeah.
So my main takeaway was, if you ever thought of yourself as not creative, just sit and think about it. Maybe try and find someone to talk through it with you. You'd be surprised what you find.
Even driving in traffic, you could be creative. You think, oh, wait, I can't go that way. But wait, if I do this and then turn around and navigate through it. I've always wanted to be creative. I always thought I was creative. I wanted to be a syndicated cartoonist. And when I was a kid, I would draw cartoons. And I always wanted to be on the radio as well. And I drew the cartoons for the school newspaper into high school. I got to 10th or 11th grade. I made this huge painting. I mean, huge. It was a barn in the fall with your eyes leading through the tall grass up to the door of the barn. And I just couldn't do the sky. It just wasn't coming out right. And I'll never forget, the art teacher was Ms. Meyer. And I said, can you help me with the sky? It's just not looking right. She comes over, did a nice job. And with her coffee breath, she says to me, you are an underachiever. And I never forgot that. I was named class artist, and I almost became a syndicated cartoonist a couple of years later, like almost we got that close to it. But then I pivoted off to radio, and I did that since I was 17 professionally till now. And funny, all that creative stuff that I put away came back. I opened a marketing agency like 15 years ago, and I got to use all that stuff again. So it wasn't for waste, it was kind of buried inside of me. But I agree with everything we're saying here that, that's art, but creativity is everything we do every day. Even if it's sending a text, sometimes, or writing an email, you might be creative in terms of the way you word it. What are your thoughts, Rhena?
Well, I'm just looking for a quote that I found. Stephen Colbert said, life is improvisation. You have no idea what's going to happen next, and you are mostly just making things up as you go along. And something that we were talking about before we started the podcast made me look for this, because I was realizing that, yes, it's just, we have to be creative daily. And if we could think about it like that, again, I was thinking about my rocky landing here in New York City. And there are so many ways that I had to keep improving to keep myself sane. And I had to come find a place to live and make this out of it or make that out of it. It's actually, yes, if we decide to take something that is really rough in our lives and we turn it into a lesson, a life lesson, that's creativity. That's saying, what can I learn from this? How can I, yep.
Absolutely. And I think something that's so important about creativity is that it is an act of love. Phil said earlier, most creations start out as a pile of crap. And that's true.
So
You just have
as the person with the degree in art here, that's the lesson they drive home on us is start
Amen.
with terrible stuff and work up from there.
and through this act of love, this act of creativity, slowly but surely things come together, and sometimes they don't, but it's still an act of love to try. And I think that's something that's so amazing about kind of giving ourselves permission to be creative and really tuning into that, is I think there is so much power in that. I think I absolutely sought out and continue to seek out creative outlets when I'm struggling in my life, because it is an act of love. It's an act of connection to other people, to myself, to the environment that I'm in. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, connected to what you were saying, Rhena, that life is creativity, and to kind of get into that creative framework, that artistic framework almost, of making things, doing things, really being, is an act of creativity, which is an act of love. And I think that is just such a nice way to frame things, especially when, like, it doesn't matter what you create. It doesn't matter if it turns out or not. It doesn't, sometimes I'll start a painting. I'm like, I know this isn't going to be good, mostly because I just kind of want to put some colors together on this page. That's
It
okay.
doesn't always have to be for someone else. It can be for just you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, I learned something today. Every time we get together, creativity is always an act of love. Let's think about it for a second. When you're being creative, you're giving of yourself. It's something to inspire others. So therefore, it comes from a place of positivity, comes from your heart, comes from maybe a place of love. even if, like G, you said, this is not turning out the way I wanted it to, but I got something I want to put down on the canvas. You're showing love to yourself by doing that.
Yeah,
And
it's absolutely the case.
I cannot help. Sorry, I have to just, I cannot help as you keep talking about this act of love, G, I keep thinking about my arrival here on May 8th, where I got scammed, and what an act of love every day that I kept pursuing was. You know, it's just like, I am not going to go back to Portland. I'm going to make New York work for me. And that's it. And the humans around me helped that happen. I kept connecting with people, and I kept going out dancing and hearing music, and all of that fed me the entire time. And Phil, what were you gonna say?
I just that it's when we create art, when we create and we build art, and we build art in a lot of different ways. Um, we're doing it as a group. Part of it is I do things that my future self will pick up and run with, and that's a different person that has learned from what I've done and that is able to take what I've done and build on it. I show what I've done, or I work with what I've done with others who I'm able to share these concepts with, and their feedback lets me adjust what I'm doing and increase my understanding of things. And the thing is that we're so self-critical, and but it's half of the process. To improve things, you have to be able to look at it and go, well, that part's not right. I can work on that part a little bit more. I know how to, I can at least poke at that until something changes, and recognize when it's better. The thing that we tend to do is we tend to let that, well, that's not good, and stop there. But if you can see the parts that aren't good, then you can change them, and you will sooner or later luck into what's better. And then you've learned something that you can pass on to your future selves and to others. And that's how great art is made.
Is it always art?
I think that life is performance art. That if you are working to improve, right? So you can continue, you can just exist, right? You can be a cog, and you can sort of cease to be, you can vanish. Art is about attracting attention to a thing, to focus attention, and to focus attention by creating a thing that is better than it was before. So when we're in the world and making a difference, we are creating art. Whether or not it's a tiny little incremental thing like a really good parking job,
No.
or architecture on the scale of an Olympic stadium. And those things aren't the acts of individuals. Those are always the acts of people working together in different ways. Imagine that stadium, right? It's been built, it's been there for 20 years, and then a bunch of people decide to get a wave started, and now the entire stadium is cooperating to produce this little moment of joy that everybody has. And when it clicks, it's like, this is amazing. Comes and goes.
Tears are coming to my eyes as you're speaking. There were other thoughts, but just something that just came to me. There is a building being built here on this block. And there was a day where another woman and I suddenly were just so drawn to what was going on. And a beautiful Mexican woman is coming here to feed these men and make some money. And somehow just your talk about this building, I mean, that is art, man. I mean, she has put together some delicious Mexican food to bring over here to her brothers who are doing construction work. There was such energy and excitement of like, give me this food now.
And think about how many performances are going on right there at that moment. The architecture has been designed by one group. The people who are putting it together is done by another. I used to work in metal fabrication, and there are artists who can weld. You look at their welds and you go, I know who did that. There's, the person who cooks and brings the food. These are all performative actions that come together to create, being alive and being a community.
And I think also, like, I want to take that a step further. And I think that the culture is also an act of creativity. Like we have these scripts almost for cultural holidays, for how we're supposed to interact with the world. Um, and I think that is human creativity. And sometimes that can limit us. And sometimes we need to, redefine those scripts. And I think that's beautiful in some ways. Like when Rena just, goes up to someone in the street, starts dancing with them and has a great time. That's not usually in the script, but it's a beautiful act of creativity. And I think that that's part of it. Yeah, that we all connect in this way, and we have this shared understanding, and we can go beyond it.
You can always cover color outside the lines.
When you use your talent, whatever it is, you could be that welder, you could be that woman that cooked that food. Is that the creativity right there?
Sure is.
Right?
I think it can be using your talent, and it could be trying something new outside of whatever you think you're good at, you know? It's all of it. I think any time that you are interacting with the world in a way to change it, in a way to connect with it, in a way to connect with others, I mean, that has to be creative.
Isn't it a shame that we all worry about being judged, though? Like if I think, Rena, when you're talking, first thing comes to mind, that phrase, dance like nobody's watching.
Mm-hmm.
But we always worry, we're doing a painting, we're going to show it to somebody. I'm like, oh, I hope they like it or anything. We worry about the criticism where I think maybe we need to let that go. You got to let it go, no matter what it is.
And just understand that the criticism and the whatever you decide is judgment is just part of the process of learning.
Sure.
You can't improve without knowing what is and is not working for you and for others. And once you understand that, then it's not judgment in a negative way. It's a liberating thing. People are showing you the path, and that's great. That's something to celebrate.
That is a nice way of looking at it. That is, I shared some of my improv with a cousin who I haven't spent time with in a long time. Me on stage at the New Yorican Cafe here, and making fun of all the mistakes I've made since I've come to New York. And I sent her two, and then I said to her, let's chat. I said, or did I scare you with my improv? And she said, yeah, kind of. And then she's like, it was a lot. You were just quiet when we were growing up. I was like, I guess maybe I believe you a little bit. But anyway, it was just interesting to hear her words because she was sharing it was a lot. And I said, thanks for letting me know, and then we went on to have a mellow conversation. And I don't know, there was the honesty, there was something nice in the honesty of her being able to say, yeah, that was a little too much. And I was like, that's cool. I can understand that.
But somebody else might say, man, that's fantastic. So, I guess creativity is relative. It depends, who's judging, if you will, the work with all of that. Wow. Interesting talk today. Like every time we get together, I wonder where it's going to go. And, learning here, creativity, that's the thing that resonates for me is love, no matter what you do, because you're doing it for somebody or you're doing it for yourself. I think we lost Jonathan. I think he's going to be creative in the kitchen making that rice and beans he talked about last time. I think he does it on Mondays, if I remember.
He had a meeting to go to, I'm guessing. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Rena, if somebody wants to connect with you in whatever capacity, figuring life out on a counseling level, therapy, whatever it be, how do we find you?
They could look for me at RHENA, RhenaMiller.com.
Gotcha. RHENA Miller.com. Guys, great talking with you today. Really was.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Stay creative, everybody. Seriously, I really mean that. Don't be judged. Enjoy and spread the love. And we'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.